Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNradio.com.
Hey, man. It's 2015. I am 34 years old. I will turn 35 next month. I see myself really as a child of the 80s, but in the 90s, but in large part a product of the 80s. Like, that's my time. That's when I come from. And we remember the things of the 80s that got us together. And there was a sound that I would always be able to point to that'd be like, yo, this will always get people excited because everybody loves it. Right? We've done this on the show before. I want to go out and fight some Russians. You know what I mean? Like, I never feel more patriotic in my life than I do when the I'm a Real American is coming on. This is the one. You imagine the Hulkster running into the ring. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's time to point at people. It's time to make the crowd cheer. Oh, are you ready for the big boot? I think the big boot is coming. Hulkster's the only dude who would play his song after the match and be out there for the whole song. Hulkster would be out there after the matches with Real American going on. It was like playing all three voices and lift every voice and sing. You hear Stony the Road We Tried and be like, hey, I didn't even know that part. I'm going to just have to hum along. But now I can't play that anymore. And why can't I play that anymore? Because the Hulkster thought that some black dude was sleeping with his daughter. Probably was. And that kind of set the Hulkster off, and he wound up on his sex tape talking about whoever this dude happens to be. It's a bit convoluted.
Wait, so he was talking about another dude while on the sex tape?
Yeah, but it was at the end. Yeah, Shannon, it was at the end. It was like after it was pillow talk of sorts, apparently.
It was like the closing credits?
I guess so. I'll tell you this. I don't think the Hulkster ever thought that he was going to mess around and get fired for pillow talk. Because, if you haven't seen this, the Hulkster is in a $100 million lawsuit with Gawker because Gawker got a sex tape and Gawker played his sex tape and he did not appreciate that at all. Like, he said he's going to fight this all the way out. There's some real ramifications for this, by the way, because if Gawker loses, like, we may not have no Gawker. But the Hulkster is pushing this. The Hulkster wanted to go, and apparently the thing that got the Hulkster caught up was in the stuff for the sex tape lawsuit. I need you to understand something about the Hulkster, just so you know. And the telephone number is 888-729-3776. The Hulkster has caught himself a series of L's recently, right? I mean, over the last few years, the Hulkster's caught some L's. The Hulkster's wife and he got divorced. She appears to have taken a significant amount of the marital assets and took them with her, including an automobile that the Hulkster once saw was being driven by one of his children's friends. And the reason one of his children's friends was driving that automobile was because that young man was sleeping with his now ex-wife. That prompted the Hulkster to say, I know how OJ feels, which, by the way, is something that you should never say. Unless you're about to break the threshold for 2,000 yards. You'll never feel like OJ, right? Unless you're taking it around to the left and you're about to hit a milestone, unless you're about to pick up the Heisman Trophy, hey, or unless you're going to be a cop and you're going to be investigating something at the docks and you're going to mess around and get roughed up. Those are the only times to say that I know how OJ felt. No. Only, you can say that, I once met the late Leslie Nielsen, and I know how OJ felt. That one works, right? You could do that. I think that's about it. But anyway, the Hulkster had that situation. He had to watch some kid who's probably been coming over to his house before, eating his food, driving around in his car with the knowledge that that dude is sleeping with his woman. It's not really his woman anymore, but, I could understand how it might get a little confusing in the Hulkster's mind. And the Hulkster caught another L you might not have known about. Did you guys know that the Hulkster had a chance to be the spokesperson for the George Foreman Grill? That's not to say it was going to be George Foreman Grill and now in a commercial Hulk Hogan. Like, it was going to be the Hulk Hogan Grill. Right. Now, once again, remember what I told you. Mrs. Hulkster got him for half. I think it was half. I don't know if it was exactly half, but I bet it felt like everything to the Hulkster. So the Hulkster's like, yo, I got to get some of my money back. That grill would have been helpful, right? Except this is from Highly Questionable. This is Dan Le Batard conducting the interview.
Is it true that you passed on the George Foreman grill idea?
No, that's not true. I missed the phone call.
What happened? Tell me the story.
Well, I mean, George Foreman and I had the same agent, and my kids were complaining that I was always towards the end of the line picking them up at school. They would get out of school at 3 o'clock, and these soccer moms would start lining up their minivans and talking shop, and so I would come at 2:45, 15 minutes before my kids get out of school, and I was at the back of the bus. So I went to McDonald's early, got Diet Cokes and got the burgers and the fries, and it was a big surprise. I get to the school about 2:15. I was the first one in line. My kids came out. They were all excited. I had the drinks and the hamburgers and stuff. And we went home, and I checked my answer machine. And my answer machine, my agent called me. He goes, hey, Hogan, I'm calling you. I got two things. I got a grill and I got a blender. I got these two choices for you and George. So when I called him back, my agent says, well, I called you first, and I figured you'd take the grill, but you weren't home, so I called George, and he took the grill. So $450 million later, we've got the George Foreman grill in every size and color you can imagine. And I got the blender that you put 8 ounces of water, a scoop of protein, and a AA battery in it. It'd spin 3 times and fart and cut off.
Oh, man, what an L for the Hulkster. And by the way, later, the Hulkster tried to push his own grill. You can look it up. It's the Hulk Hogan Ultimate Grill. Nah, homie, the grill ship has sailed. The grill is currently being driven by one of your children's friends. Like, that's where the grill is. The grill's gone. Hulk Hogan go mess around, go to what used to be his house. And what's going on in there? What used to be his wife is hanging out with who used to be his son's homeboy, but is now the dude sleeping with the woman that used to be his wife. And guess what? They cooking lunch on the George Foreman grill. The Hulkster has caught a series of L's. But here's my thing, Hulk. If you want to catch the L's, that's fine. Why you got to ruin everybody's childhood in the process? I want you to think about something right now, okay? It's 2015. Michael Jackson, dead. Bill Cosby might as well be dead. Hulkamania? Like Terry Bollea, you're still alive. But Hulk Hogan, let the WWE tell it, he's dead now too. Like, you do realize, Hulkster, that now when we see you, we looking at you like Kramer from Seinfeld. I can't watch Seinfeld anymore because I know what Kramer really wants to say. Now I'm out here looking at the Hulkster like, who you calling brother? What you trying to say, Hulk? I ain't your brother. Who is your brother? Hulk. It's messing up for everybody. He would have messed it up for everybody. Like, I'm not mad about this. I'm not charged up about this. Like, I don't have time to be so upset about this. I'll tell you this, though, and I feel pretty confident saying this. There's a whole lot of people out here that are judging the Hulkster right now. And I'm not saying you're wrong for judging the Hulkster, because I'm certainly judging the Hulkster, too. I'm just telling you, if they put a candid camera inside your house when you or maybe your father started talking about that black dude that your sister is dating, I don't think you necessarily want to know what's going on there. It's all fun and games until you bring that black dude home. I have found in my life that brings out the worst in people. And a whole lot of y'all are sitting here, I can't believe you saying that. A whole lot of y'all are sitting there saying, yeah, you're right. I didn't know my daddy could think such a thing.
Bomani.
We're talking about the Hulkster. He just went ahead and killed all our childhoods, right? Got himself caught up. A lot of us grew up with some sort of an affection for the Hulkster. And now that just had to go away, man. Like, the Hulkster just went and blew it. We heard the Hulkster saying things that the Hulkster wasn't supposed to say. I don't feel like any of those things were contained within the training, the prayers, or the vitamins. Like, he didn't say the training, the prayers, the vitamins, to drop a couple racial slurs if you get the chance. He didn't do that, right? So we've basically lost the Hulkster. 888-729-3776. Talk to Pierre in Virginia. Pierre, thanks for calling the right time.
Bomani, how are you, sir?
Doing all right.
I'm sure I'm going to hit on a couple talking points you are, but it seems like the Hulkster's been on a downward spiral since the reality show. Like, he was in Rolling Stone a few years ago, and he was, like, saying he could sympathize with O.J. because that's what was going on, like, to the divorce. So you can think that, but to say that, like, in a national publication, like, when I read that, I was like, oof. But back to when you were saying how I listened to you on the Dan Le Batard show a lot, talking about how wrestling and racism, they always play on racism and stereotypes. And I've got a list. Akeem the African Dream.
Hold on. That's what we about to do. Got to get him off the phone. You're about to mess it up for us, Pierre. No, Pierre. That was a great call, and you were about to make a great point, but you were about to ruin a whole lot of stuff that we spent all damn afternoon working on. I don't think we can take another phone call, can we? Shannon, I'm a little worried.
This sound for nothing. We're gonna play this music.
Yeah, we're gonna do this because everyone seems to appreciate the irony. The WWE gave Hogan the full treatment. Like, they scrubbed him out on the website. I talked to somebody who's aware of some WWE things, and he described it as, quote, a power cleanse, unquote. Like, this is basically like if you went to McDonald's and you were like, yo, whatever happened to Ronald? And they're like, we don't know no Ronald. Ain't no Ronald here. What's that? You want to go holler at Grimace? Grimace right there signing autographs, right? Like they just took Ronald McDonald completely out of the house. They ain't no clown, ain't none of that going on right now with the WWE. They just got rid of him. But they got rid of him for saying something racist like it's not wrestling, okay? The funniest thing in the world today, I made Virgil take this down. You know Virgil used to be with Ted DiBiase?
Uh-huh.
Who is, how would you describe Virgil, Shannon?
To be politically correct, he was his right-hand man.
Right-hand man. If you weren't being politically correct, what would it rhyme with? How you would describe him?
Well, I would say he would be his right-hand boy.
Yeah, that's kind of it. That's basically what his job was. And Virgil, of all people, got on Twitter talking about don't take Hulk Hogan's words out of context. Like, here comes Virgil to defend Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, dude, you can't be the one to say this right now. Like, do you realize how this sounds? Like, when people hear the voice that you're using right now, because I don't know what Virgil voice sounds like. When you hear this right now, do you realize what people are thinking of you?
That you're literally Virgil.
Virgil, right. And you don't even work for Hulk Hogan. You work for the $1 Million Man.
If it was Ron Simmons, then that's something different.
Right.
At least he led the nation of domination.
Right. You're Virgil, right? You can't be the one to do this. But the question everybody has is, since when did wrestling start caring about these things, right? Since when did wrestling start caring about these things? Think about all the wrestlers, the black wrestlers that you could imagine. Like, we could take this down to other races, but for right now, we just going to focus on the black wrestlers, right? All the wrestlers there's been. Let me get some music. Oh, no. Is this Jive Talk Bro? Is that the name of the song? From the Doctor of Style Slick? Go ahead and turn that up for the people. This is a WWE release. The Doctor of Style Slick. And who used to come to the ring for this song with the Doctor of Style Slick? The African Dream Akeem, whose name was not Akeem. He's like the original Rachel Dolezal, isn't he? He just one day he was the one-man gang. The next day he was the African Dream Akeem.
Like, he felt like Akeem the whole time.
He felt like Akeem. He just decided. He was watching the Rockets one night, and he was like, that's what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be Akeem the Dream. But today, wrestling has a problem. Shannon, we got anybody else? Any other great wrestlers of yore? Now, who's this?
This is the Godfather.
That's right. You may remember the Godfather, the wrestling pimp. He used to come to the ring with a string of prostitutes. At least that's what they would call them. The Godfather. Didn't he use, what was he before that? Papa Shango?
Amongst other names, yeah.
Yeah. None of these have been uplifting. Like, who's the most uplifting black wrestler ever? The Junkyard Dog? Like, The Rock The Rock is black, but people try to act like The Rock is not black. So The Rock doesn't count in this discussion.
Let's see. We had Coco Beware.
We did have Coco Beware. We had Coco Beware.
Johnny B. Bad.
We had but Johnny B. Bad, what Johnny B. Bad, white, pretending to be black? I thought, no, he put on skin bronzer.
Oh, really?
Yes, Johnny B. Bad put on skin bronzer.
Man.
Okay, so we got Johnny B. Bad. Like, all the black wrestlers are a problem. Like every single one. Remember when they had Booker T and his partner, and they were Harlem Heat? Except Booker T is from Houston, which is farther from Harlem than you could ever be. But Harlem means, black. So they had him out there. But today, Vince McMahon woke up, and Vince McMahon was like, wait a minute. There's no way in the world that we can have Hulkamania expressing racially intolerant beliefs. No way in the world. Like never ever looking at any of – didn't they have Crime Time a couple of years ago where the dudes were just criminals?
Yep.
What was the dude, Rodney Mack, who had the 3-minute white boy challenge? You remember that?
Yep.
They had him out there. I feel like I'm missing some really great ones because the Nation of Domination, right around the Million Man March, where the Million Man March brought a lot of people together to try to do something positive. And Vince was like, positive? Forget that. Hey, Ron Simmons, you're now a Muslim named Farouk. And The Rock was out there with him.
He was.
And you notice, by the way, they always talk about The Rock being Samoan. Apparently, people who watch wrestling, this is like a big debate, whether or not The Rock is black, whether or not Dwayne is black.
His father sure was.
The Dwayne who keeps telling people that he's black. People are like, no. No matter how many times don't say it. Don't talk about yourself like that, buddy. Come on, now quit being so hard on yourself. Like, I mean, it's amazing how this comes up and when this comes up. And then today, wrestling decided, do we have any more music? We got anybody else or are we good? We got anybody else? Oh, yeah. That Kamala, the Ugandan giant?
Absolutely.
There's nothing racist about this. Kamala's from Mississippi, by the way, I think.
He's a WMPT now, too, unfortunately.
Oh.
His sugar, yeah.
You didn't have to bring that up, by the way. Like, we were having a great time. There you go.
Well, part of the theme was how our childhoods are now ruined, so.
Yes, there you go. No, I just lost Kamala. Like, I've lost so much already, and you just took Kamala away from me. How in the world did wrestling just wake up and decide that today we have a problem? And people keep saying it's about money. Well, what else are they going to do? Like, what else is it that they're going to change? We could have gone on forever. Remember they had the homie Eddie Guerrero out there on that La Cheat Steel? Superfly Snuka? Any Samoan wrestler ever? Like, have they ever had a Samoan wrestler other than The Rock who spoke English? Like, they always got him out there, like, breaking coconuts and, like, wearing masks and stuff like that. Like, the Hulksters really got to be sitting up right now like, you guys have got to be kidding me. Michael P.S. Hayes used to come to the ring in the Confederate flag and still has a job. Michael P.S. Hayes called Mark Henry that name dead up to his face. Like, Michael P.S. Hayes, when all of this is going on and they fired Hulk Hogan for this one, Michael P.S. Hayes got to be like, hey, don't look at me. Don't look at me.
It wasn't me this time.
Nope.
Bomani.
The New York Times reported today that Junior Seau's family will not be allowed to speak at the Hall of Fame ceremony this year, where Junior Seau will be inducted into the to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're going to have Jim Trotter of ESPN joining us at 10 o'clock to talk about this. But he's not going to be his family will not be able to speak. Now, that's a little bit of an awkward thing in terms of discussion because, look, we know the story with Junior Seau. We know the questions surrounding his decision to take his own life and the questions about head injuries and the push that his family's making for answers, the fact that he shot himself in the heart so his brain would not be damaged. It's a little bit of an awkward thing that we're probably going to be thinking about during the Hall of Fame ceremony. So immediately people made what I think was the reasonable jump to say that the NFL just didn't want his family to speak. Like, I don't think that would be an unreasonable thing to surmise. Well, the Pro Football Hall of Fame says that the reason that they will not be speaking is because they no longer allow presenters to speak for posthumous inductees. They said in 2011, Les Richter, he was a linebacker with the Los Angeles Rams. He died the year before. His family did not speak. What they're saying is they do a video tribute, and the video tribute is 2 minutes longer than the tribute for the living inductees, and that is what they do. That is simply a matter of policy. And to be fair, the Pro Football Hall of Fame can say, yes, look at what we did with Les Richter, right? Like, they're allowed to do that. Here's the thing. You know why they don't let the families of the posthumous inductees speak? they don't let them speak. At least the story is because those people then get up and have gotten up in the past and spoken, and that a lot of what they've said basically repeated what was in the video. Therefore, it made the ceremony unnecessarily long. And so to keep the ceremony shorter, they don't allow those people to speak for the honorees. And I got to say, before we even get to the say-out part of it, right? Before we get there, man, is that not tacky? Right? Like you're telling people, hey, they're going to be there to go through all these emotions, right? They're going to go through all these feelings and everything else, and they're introducing the world. In a lot of these cases, these posthumous inductees are not guys like Junior Seau, who we vividly remember. It's guys like Les Richter, who I've never heard of. Mm-hmm. And they're telling their families, nah, y'all just going to say something we already did. Like, how's that work? Because that's my problem. Like, we can get to the say-out thing. The say-out thing has its own particular issues.
It's a lot of layers.
But what is, like, that as an idea, as a notion, just feels so tasteless. Now, part of why I think this is the case is that the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony is now a television show. Like, when I was younger, that ceremony wasn't what it is now. They had it in the daytime, for one thing. Like, this wasn't a thing where everybody just looked forward to watching. That's come around. That's been a thing, I'd say, of the last 10 years, if it's even been, like, that far off. Like, that is a new thing, that this is an occasion or something to watch, and people got on TV for it. So I understand it's on television. We got to figure out how do we cut how do we save time? And a lot of these guys who are posthumous inductees, well, nobody remembers them anyway. Therefore, who's going to wind up being hurt? Like, that's the argument. It may be this, though, and I don't know this myself. I'm just giving you something to consider here. We're hearing these horrible stories more and more now about the way that football players' lives are ending. You have things like guys like Junior Seau. You can go again, you have a guy like Mike Webster, for example, right? Now, Mike Webster was inducted into the Hall of Fame before he died, of course, but imagine if you were in Mike Webster's family and he has died. And now you are speaking at the Hall of Fame. What might you say? And that's something that I think that the Hall of Fame and everybody around it has considered. That the families of dead football players are very often not happy with the whole institution, with everything surrounding it. So it's entirely possible they were just trying to save time on television. But as you may have seen very recently, you can't give everybody an open microphone if they feel like they don't have anything to lose. You can't. You can do it for some people. You can't do it for everybody. And there's no real way for the NFL to know who is who. Like, I would make the argument that if their thing was we're going to do a longer video tribute because the people who speak for those inductees often say stuff that's already in the video, why don't you let them see the damn video first? Right? And then let them, but that would be too much like right. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. And it says here that Derek Thomas was presented by his son and by Carl Peterson when he went in. So I don't know if he got in before the thing or whatever it was. But, man, it could be – there's a lot going on there. I
believe Thomas was inducted after his death, I believe.
Yeah, it was after his death, but was it before or after this Les Richter guy that apparently was where the paradigm shifted, where it looked like somebody was doing this Hall of Fame thing, and they were like, yo, we got to – I bet this decision was made. It would not shock me in the least if this decision was made. That 1 year, they're doing this show, and they're like, man, how are we going to save minutes? And somebody looks down and is like, who is Les Richter? And they were like, I got it. And then it just carries on for the rest of the time. You'd be amazed how many decisions are made just to make one television show work.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Bomani.
So some of you may be familiar with Charles Haley. Charles Haley is the owner of 5, count them, 5 Super Bowl rings. And Charles Haley, apparently he's done a good deal of work on some of his issues, but the stories of things Charles Haley did when he was a player are pretty incredible. There's Charles Haley getting angry once with an assistant coach and then urinating on that assistant coach's desk, and that kind of lends to a common theme of Charles Haley's stories, because Charles Haley was known for pulling that out in public and not always to urinate, like in position meetings.
All right.
Yeah. Different kind of dude. He, by the way, is going into the Hall of Fame this year. Congratulations to him. But he says that he went, this is according to the San Jose Mercury News, he says that he went to go talk to some of the 49ers, went to talk to some of the rookies. 49ers asked him to talk to the rookies. Interesting choice, but hey, who am I to judge, right? So Charles Haley was there, and this is what he told the San Jose Mercury News. As far as the rookies, and I know they probably got mad, but I said, why don't you all act like the white guys? You never see them in the paper getting high or hitting people. Why don't you act like that? They all looked at me crazy. I got a question for Charles Haley. What newspaper does he read? The Final Call? The Pittsburgh Courier? The Chicago Defender? Like, where are these newspapers that don't have white people in them committing crimes? Like, maybe he was just talking about, white football players. Maybe he's decided that they don't commit crimes. I don't know. But, the newspaper that doesn't have white people committing crimes in it is the newspaper that just doesn't have white people in it. That's just kind of how it works.
A comic book.
Yes, He kind of lost me there. He kind of lost me there. But here's what I think is funny about that. He said that talking to the 49ers, and it worked out well that he was talking to a bunch of rookies when he said it, because if he had been talking to veterans, he would have had a different problem, which is your man Bruce Miller would have been sitting in there. You know, Bruce Miller caught the charge for destroying his girlfriend's cell phone, and she says that he assaulted her, his ex-fiance. He says that he did not touch her. He pled no contest to it. There were no visible injuries on her end. I just want to make sure you guys have everything there, right, that you understand what I'm saying. I want to make sure I'm giving Bruce Miller all the benefit of the doubt that is deserved with the facts as were present. That being said, don't nobody believe him. I'm sure there's some people who believe him, but generally the inclination in a situation like that is not to believe a dude like Bruce Miller when he's in that situation. So can you imagine if Charles Haley had been in front of all the 49ers, and he'd have been like, why don't you guys act more like the white dudes? And then everybody turned to look at Bruce Miller, and Bruce Miller's like, come on, dog, why you blowing up my spot? Why you blowing up my spot? I'm just minding my own business.
Twiddling his thumb in the corner.
Yeah, like even right now, right? Even right now, Bruce Miller is a fullback. He could have gone to camp, and if he didn't get himself into any additional trouble, he could have made it through, right? Nobody would have really thought about it. Look, Ray McDonald is no longer in San Francisco. They got all their own problems with stuff like personnel and everything else. Like, Bruce Miller could have made it through. We really wouldn't have thought much about it again. He doesn't get the ball very much. You know, he just goes out there and hits people. It would have worked out okay for him. And here comes Charles Haley. Why don't you act more like the white guys? And now we all like, what about Bruce Miller? And Bruce Miller's like, what'd I do to you? I mean, I know I am alleged to have done something to somebody else, but I didn't do nothing to you. Like, why are you up in my grill about this? It's a thing, though. Like, this is.
So what does that mean? What does that mean, act like the white guys? What does that mean?
Well, he's saying that the white guys don't get high and don't hit people.
All of them?
Every last one, apparently. That's what he's got.
I don't understand the correlation.
Nobody really quite gets it. Like, that's the thing. Like, one thing you always have to remember about the NFL, though, is there are literally thousands of players in the NFL. There are so many players in the NFL. And one thing I always do think is worth noting about players in the NFL, you have to have some – what's the best way to put this? You have to be able to turn off your I don't think this is a good idea impulse to play football. Like, is that safe to say? Like, when you look at the things that go on a football field, how many of them look like a good idea? And not very many, right? Like, you are predisposed to dealing with people whose I don't think that's a good idea meter doesn't really register. It takes a lot to get them to say that something isn't a good idea. Like, that's always going to be part of it.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb. I'm smart, and I want respect.
But here's the key. I'm not talking about whether or not they're smart. I'm talking about whether they do smart things, right? There are smart people who do dumb things all the time. Like, I have a personal sympathy for people with bad judgment, right? Like, you know those people where if you put a good idea right next to a bad idea dead in front of their faces, and they just can't figure out which one they should take. Like, there are just some people like that. Like, I feel bad for them. And it takes them a while to get it figured out, but all that stuff is randomly distributed. Like, none of that is racially specific. It's just not that. And it won't be. It's not. But these things happen, and cats feel like they're telling the truth. Like, I bet if you talk to Charles Haley about it, Charles Haley would be like, well, somebody's got to say it. Like, that's how everybody feels, as though people aren't saying that, like, all the time, repeatedly. Now, there's one thing I will say, though, about NFL players as it relates to black and white, where this isn't a judgment of any sort necessarily, and it's but tangentially connected to what Charles Haley said, but it is something I think that is worth noting, at least from what I can tell. I would love to see somebody do a survey that basically talked to every NFL player and got, like, more into their background, coded up some variables or ran a model that lets you ask some questions about their backgrounds, because it seems to the naked eye that the white dudes who play football tend to be guys, like professional football, tend to be guys who come from money, which is not quite the case when you deal with black dudes. It's like it almost seems as though in a lot of ways that access for white dudes comes from privilege and money and the ability to, like, go to the camps and all those things, where what seems to be the driving factor for a lot of black dudes is outright poverty and desperation. Like, it's just, you seem to have people who come from different places. As a result, though, the reason I bring this up is when you wind up with guys who are coming from different places, it's very easy to marginalize the guys that are coming from something that's closer to the bottom. And then you make all the judgments that you have about those people, and then a couple of guys wind up getting arrested, and then what do you wind up saying? Why can't you be more like the white guys? But it's not simply about being more like the white guys because you're saying the black guys commit some crimes. It's something much larger than that. But we have a real schism in that way. Like, listen to the quarterbacks when they talk. The guys who play quarterback in the NFL, go talk to them. Go listen to them. Go find out where they came from. They're coming from different places than a lot of the other guys who are on the field. So it becomes real easy for a lot of people to draw racial judgments when race is not necessarily the factor that's at play there. But when those guys come from different places, what winds up happening? People wind up telling one set of guys to be like the other ones. And nobody's ever telling Drew Brees, why don't you act more like the black dudes? But you'll go tell some random black dude to act more like the white dudes, not knowing a damn thing about how that black dude gets down. Like, it's entirely possible, this may be shocking, but maybe, just maybe, some of those white dudes might want to be more like them. Don't make them feel inferior on that nonsense. Okay, I don't mean nonsense, Charles Haley. I don't want you showing up to see me. I don't need that. Charles Haley, you have the right to your own opinion. Yes, you do.
Bomani.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest who works for us here at ESPN. He is also the author of Junior Seau, The Life and Death of a Football Icon. This is Howard University's own Jim Trotter. Jim, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing all right. First thing I have to ask, though, since you being a Harvard grad, have you read the Coates book yet?
No, I have not.
You got to do it, man. You got to do it. Like, nobody, he puts on for Howard as much, if not more, than you do, which is very difficult to do. So I figured it would be the kind of thing that's right up your alley.
I will definitely check it out.
All right, we're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN.
But I got to say, too, I'm honored, man. It's my first time on the show. So, for me, this is a big day.
Hey, dude, it's big for me too. See, I have to pick my spots very carefully. We're having you guys on. You're busy. You have these busy lives, and it's Friday night. So I'd greatly appreciate you coming on. And I wanted to know what you thought when you saw the report that Junior Seau's family had spoken to the New York Times about the fact that they would not be speaking at the Hall of Fame.
Truthfully, I was tied up most of the day, and I had gotten a call from someone in his family early in the day, and I couldn't take it, and I thought I'll get back to him later. And when I finally came free, I guess this thing started to blow up. My first thought was I was a little surprised, to be quite frank, because the family knew very early on in the process that what the Hall's policy was, that they do not have family members give podium speeches for players who are deceased. And so when I heard that this was a controversy, I made a few calls, and what I found out is that apparently there was just miscommunication or misunderstanding. Because what happened, my understanding is that later in the process, Sidney Seau, who Junior wanted, his daughter, his only daughter, if he were alive, he wanted her to present him. And so what the Hall did is they had Sidney make the video tribute that is supposed to be played before the veil is lifted off of his bust. And Sidney was under the impression from someone else at the Hall of Fame, not necessarily the person in charge of it, that she would be able to make a speech as well as do the video tribute. And so there were some things that she took out of the tribute that she would have included if that were the only access she had to the public in terms of speaking on behalf of her father. And so later on, now let's fast forward to more recently, she finds out that no, she can't make a speech to present him, that there is only the video tribute. And now it's a little painful for her because there are some things, again, that she would have said in the tribute that is not in there. Now, the easy fix to me is, well, just go back and let her say what she wants to say. But, Bomani, when it comes to these sorts of things, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. So why the Hall won't do that, or why the NFL Network, who actually shot the video for the tribute, won't do that, I don't know, but that seems like an easy fix for me.
All right, we're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN, and to your knowledge, is there any apprehension from the league in these situations about what these family members might say?
No, I have not heard that. What I was told by the Hall of Fame is that the reason they went to this policy was that they were doing video tributes and then having a family member make the presentation. And what they found is that the ceremonies were becoming increasingly long, and that in these situations, the family member was basically echoing what was in the video. And as a means of shortening the ceremony, because as you remember, it used to get long and hot out there, they came up with the idea that they would just do the video tribute rather than also having the presentation. So my understanding is that it had nothing to do with any sort of influence from the NFL, which is what now so many people think that this is because the Seau family pulled out of the concussion lawsuit and is currently suing the NFL, that the NFL put pressure, or the NFL decided that the Seau family or a representative would not be allowed to speak, when in fact the NFL has no control over this policy. This was made by the Hall of Fame, which is independent and will tell you adamantly autonomous from the NFL. So from that standpoint, as much as we want to think there's a conspiracy, in this case you just can't say that there is, because this policy wasn't put in place just for Junior. Les Richter in 2011, his family wasn't allowed to make a presentation on his behalf, and they just went with the video tribute. So this is not a Seau rule or Seau policy as some people are trying to make it.
All right, we're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN, and as you described it as a misunderstanding with the family, thinking that there would be more things that they could put in the tribute. Did they take this or think of it when it first happened as being related to those other issues?
I don't know. I did not ask that specifically. I think that enough people have brought it up that it might give one pause to make them think that. But I can tell you in the conversations I had with family members today, what they've told me is that they have great appreciation for the Hall of Fame, that the Hall of Fame has been tremendous to them through this process, and it's just unfortunate that there was this misunderstanding. But in no way are they, in my conversations with them, are they questioning the integrity of the Hall of Fame.
All right, we're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN, and you've been close with Seau and his family for a while. How are they doing now?
It's tough. The one thing I found in writing this book is that everyone you talk to, for the most part, the one thing you get from them at some point during the conversation is that they miss him. I mean, he was such a vibrant spirit, and he was such a good person that, he called people buddy because in some cases he couldn't remember your name, but also because his family, the siblings, they all grew up under a mother whose mantra to them was go out and make happy. And that's what he tried to do with everyone he met. He tried to make them happy. He tried to make them smile. And so for him not to be here, it's tough. And for Sydney, in particular, he was her light. All she ever wanted was to make him happy and to love him. And for him to go through some of the things he went through at the end of his life that a lot of us, or that people involved couldn't understand at the time, but now I think have a better understanding of maybe some of the reasons his behavior was the way it was. It helps, but it doesn't lessen the pain.
We're talking to Jim Trotter of ESPN. You said you spoke with the Hall of Fame. Did they give any indication that this is a policy that they may revisit?
No, not at this point. Because their concern with this was that if they change it for Junior, then they've got to change it for anyone else who comes along. And at this point, look, the reality is that TV is starting and money is starting to control the Hall of Fame ceremony. I'm a voter. We were told cameras would never be in the room as we were going through the process of deliberating these candidates. Well, in fact, now cameras are in the room, at least for a select number of presentations for a candidate, not necessarily the discussion, but the presentation. It used to be that we could go as long as we wanted on any candidate and overall on the candidates. Now we've got to get done by a certain time because there's a television show that NFL Network's going to put on that, you've got to meet that schedule. So for anyone to think that the NFL Network and that television and money doesn't impact this, I think are kidding themselves. And I think the one thing that the Hall wants to do, at least this is my opinion, is make sure that it abides by a schedule that they can get this thing started and over with in time to make their now broadcast partner happy.
Yeah, boy, I was going to say something about how TV ruins everything, but then I realized that payday is next week. I won't be saying any such thing. It's just an unfortunate way that things have to go sometimes. Jim Trotter of ESPN, my man, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Bomani.
Braxton Miller, we announced this during the show last night. Well, it's not like we broke the news. We just happened to be on the air when it came out. But Braxton Miller is not going to be playing quarterback at Ohio State. Braxton Miller is going to be playing receiver. Now, of course, Braxton Miller's father now says, nah, we're just going to do that if it's a backup plan. And Urban Meyer is saying, nah, we're just going to do it if it's, as the backup plan, which is basically Urban Meyer saying, stop making Bud Foster's job easier for September the 7th. Like that's basically what he's saying right there. Bud Foster, the defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech, gave J.T. Barrett the blues last year. I cannot imagine how, if you're Urban Meyer, how late you stay up. Because you realize that Bud Foster has had 9 months to get ready for you. And he played him last year. Yes. Right? That's not what you want. Anyway, there's a part of this Braxton Miller story that I don't think really gets discussed. And it's just it's a little small wrinkle to it, but I think it's something interesting that you guys perhaps would like to discuss. Now, Braxton Miller takes some hits. He's a quarterback, but he's played in these running offenses, so, you see him on the inside. He takes his fair share of shots, but by and large, Braxton Miller out there running in the open field, got time to dodge and time to get away. Well, from what I've been reading from the guys who are into scouting, they're talking about Braxton Miller as an H-back, but there are a lot of people who think that Braxton Miller probably has his best chance at success as a running back. He's 6'1". He's about 210 pounds. And, look, playing wide receiver is just not as easy as people make it look like it is on television. It's just not like you go look at a clip of Braxton Miller running like as a quarterback out of the pocket and going down the field and stuff like that. That isn't the way a wide receiver typically runs. Like, there's a lot to learn. He's been working on it, but it wouldn't shock me if ultimately he wound up playing running back. Let me tell you something, man. If he went from thinking he was going to be an NFL quarterback to thinking he's going to have to try to be an NFL running back, if that ain't going from the penthouse to the outhouse, I don't know what is. They got all these rules when you're the quarterback to stop people from knocking your block. If you're a running back, nobody cares, B. Right? You get to the league, you're in the NFL, you're a quarterback, you in the pocket, you get hit in the head, somebody's throwing a flag. You're a running back, you get hit in the head, you should have been better at throwing the ball. Maybe you should have worked on something else, right? Maybe you didn't hone the proper skills. But that's just the cost of doing business when you're a running back. Like, I mean, granted, like I say, I know it hurts to play quarterback. I'm positive that it's taxing on your body to play quarterback. And I know that Braxton Miller takes hits in the pocket. He takes hits when he's running, anything else. But, man, if he ever becomes a running back, that first 25-carry game is going to feel like something different than he's ever felt. Ever. Like, if I've been playing football, like I put it like this. I say this all the time about cars. I don't know what kind of car you have. Like, I don't know what kind of car you're riding in right now. But that car you have, unless something really bad happens, you're going to be driving a car of that level of quality for the rest of your life. Once you've had power windows, there ain't no going back to cranking them down. It's just not happening. Once you've grown accustomed to that sort of lifestyle, there's no way that you're going back to it. It can't happen, right? Once you have put your booty on that leather, your booty will be on leather forever. I don't care if you move to Houston and your car gets blazing hot in the summer. It'll get blazing hot on that leather. You'll just have towels on the seat, and you'll put that thing in the window to stop the sun from coming in. But you're not going down. That's how it works, right? So imagine you as the person who will never roll down his own windows again. You have decided that I am accustomed to a life where all I have to do is press a button and the window goes down all the way. All right? You are not willing to go back to cranking down the window. I'll be damned if I go from playing quarterback to getting hit like a running back. Because this is the other thing about being a running back. Let me say it right quick. The other thing about being a running back, you know what it is? You know what they expect you to do? Get yards after contact. See, when you're a quarterback, they come to hit you, you're supposed to get out the way. If you're a running back and you act like you did when you were a quarterback, they'll never let you play again. Ever.
And when you're playing wide out or running back, you got to be able to block as well.
Yes.
That means you want contact. You want to get in the way.
Yeah.
The total opposite of what you were taught to do as a quarterback.
No, Shannon, you're so right, because he's thinking to himself, you want me to do what? That's the help's job. Right? Like, you're the quarterback. All these other cats are the help when you're the quarterback. You're the CEO. These are secretaries. These are janitors. These are middle managers. Like, that's who you got out there. Now they looking at you like you got to take your own trash out.
You used to eating the chocolate chess pie.
Yes. Yes, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Like, we're going to find out just how much Braxton Miller loves football. I bet it's easy to love football when you play a quarterback. It's real easy to love football when you remember Dan Kendra? Do you remember him? Dan Kendra was like the #1 recruit in America. He's from Pennsylvania. He went to Florida State, and I think he got hurt a couple of times, but he eventually wound up moving to fullback. And he just got super swole to play fullback. And one time he busted the blood vessels in his eye because he was trying to squat so much. I was like, you love football more than me, because if I used to be the quarterback, I could not get that passionate about blocking. Whew.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket. Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Bomani.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. You can find us writing all over the place. Check him out at thesmokingsection.com. You can also check him out at bossip.com. And he has an article right now at playboy.com. You can read for the articles. And it is about being a black wrestling fan, which is especially topical after what has happened here with Hulk Hogan. His name is David Dennis. David, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. A busy day today, huh?
Oh, dude, a whole lot has been going on. And I always say this, I'm too old to watch wrestling, but I really enjoy reading about wrestling. And I love reading the stuff that you write about wrestling. And what you wrote about today was something I'd wondered about because, for one, let's just talk about this. The idea that the WWE would let Hulk Hogan go for racism when they are, in fact, the WWE. I think you see the humor in that, no?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy because the last time the WWE, really struck somebody from the record like they did Hulk Hogan was Chris Benoit, and he murdered his wife and child. So this is like a huge deal. And so it's pretty crazy. I think the reason they're getting rid of him is because it being revealed that he is saying racist stuff is going to make people do what we're doing today and look at all the racist stuff that the WWE does, and they do not want that.
Do they really not want that, though, because they've been so eager to do it for so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so the way they do their storylines, they go with the lowest common denominator on any character. So, they're muscle-bound guys. There's not a lot of nuance. So when they have black guys, it's like we're going to go with the stereotypes, and it never really ends well. And so they've been very brash about it. Vince McMahon himself called John Cena the N-word on a pay-per-view live in 2005. So this is something that they've been doing forever, but now we're going to really start taking a look at it. That's not something that they really want to deal with.
All right, we're talking to David Dennis. Check out his story at Playboy.com about being a black wrestling fan in the midst of this Hulk Hogan thing. And what was your reaction when this first happened with Hulk Hogan? Because I don't know if you was a Hulkamaniac or not.
Well, no, I'm not a Hulkamaniac. As you get older and become a wrestling fan, you sort of generally grow to despise Hulk Hogan for his behind-the-scenes politics, the lies he tells. He always tells the stories about how, basically he body slammed Andre the Giant to death in real life. So I'm not, a huge Hulk Hogan fan. About the story today, I'm not too surprised because I generally try not to be too surprised when, a 60-year-old white dude uses the N-word in general. So, no, I'm not too surprised.
You did raise an interesting point that Hulk Hogan does talk about body slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, and then he says Andre died not too long after that. He died 6 years after that.
Yeah, he died. Yeah, he died in the 90s. But there's a YouTube clip of Hulk Hogan on MTV Cribs, and he's the day after, he was basically saying the day after WrestleMania, Andre the Giant died and gave Hulk Hogan his boots, and they loved each other. But that was so far from the truth, and his Andre the Giant stories change by the year, and they get closer and closer to that match when Andre the Giant died. So you generally don't trust the things Hulk Hogan says.
See, this is the thing about you wrestling guys that I don't quite understand. Y'all read all this stuff about wrestling, and all it does is make you not like people anymore.
I mean, but the same thing with sports. I mean, you're going to read Allen Iverson's book, and you're not going to like him too much after reading that. I mean, that's just what happens. When you dig up a lot about most celebrities and most people in general, you don't really like what you find. So it's just nice to pretend that these guys, when they're in the ring, they're still athletes and doing crazy stuff.
See, that's what I'm saying. You signing up for them to pretend. I just let them pretend all the time. That would just have to be me.
Yeah, you kind of want to. You really want to. You want to like guys for what they do in the ring, but you go through the dirt sheets and you see the behind-the-scene politics, and that becomes a story in itself. It almost adds to the story sometimes.
All right, we're talking to David Dennis. Check out his story on wrestling on Playboy.com right now. And tell the people about your story because it spoke to a conflict that I think a lot of people go through in watching wrestling.
Well, basically, when you people like yourself clown me for watching wrestling as a grown-up, I can sort of defend the athleticism and the storytelling and things like that. When you talk about how can you let your children watch wrestling. I could defend it as a parent. But as a black man, it's really, really hard to defend the fact that I watch something that perpetuates a lot of racism. And I don't tolerate that in any other facet of life. Like, if I'm watching a movie and there's, like, racist stereotypes, I'm going to turn the movie off and I'm going to tweet about how I'm going to boycott it and never see it again. But when I'm watching wrestling, I'm pretty much assuming that a black character is going to end up in some racist stereotype, but I still watch it. So it's a conflict, with myself. Like, am I really, like, how much am I for black progressiveness if I'm going to watch Monday Night Raw every week and still cheer for a wrestler who's going to maybe shuck and jive when he's on TV?
What is your favorite shucking and jiving wrestler or tag team of all time?
Man, you know what? I'm going to go actually non-black and say the most sort of racist, like insanely racist group was the Mexicools, who were 3 Mexican guys who rode to the ring in a lawnmower. And this was like 2003. This was like not even like a long time ago. And so they would ride to the ring in a lawnmower on SmackDown every week.
Dude, I remember seeing those dudes flipping the channels, riding the lawnmowers, and the whole way I was thinking, I know exactly how the WWE is going to defend this, and they're going to say, well, I mean, they have a riding mower.
Right, right. They would just go in their lawnmower and, and wrestle, and they didn't last long, but they were the Mexicools, and they were embracing every terrible stereotype possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The moment I looked up at wrestling, I think I was about 17 or 18 when this happened, where I was just like, okay. I mean, I was done watching wrestling by this point, but when I looked up and saw The Godfather, the wrestling pimp, that's when I was just like, hey, man, we all got to stop and reevaluate what we're doing with our lives right now, baby.
I mean, the Godfather, so Charles Wright, the guy who played The Godfather, just could not, like, before he was The Godfather, he was Papa Shango, which he was a voodoo guy. And so he would, like, curse people, and he made, like, the Ultimate Warrior, like, vomit on people. And then he became Kama, who was a fighting, like, ninja guy, martial arts dude, who took the Undertaker's urn and melted it into a gold chain. Like, he just they could not make him not racist even when they tried to. And then he became the Godfather, the pimp.
I was imagining, like, what it's like when they come in and tell him it's going to be a new character, what he says to himself, like, man, they got to call me in for another meeting, bro.
Right, right. I mean, I'm sure when he's just, like, anytime he's not, like, in slavery garb, I'm sure he counted as a victory at that point.
Well, like, I thought about it for a second. I think the closest thing we got to an uplifted black wrestler is the Junkyard Dog. Like, I don't have anything really bad to say about the Junkyard Dog from here. You probably have some history to kill that dream, though, don't you?
No, I mean, Junkyard Dog was huge, Louisiana guy. He was huge in Louisiana. And, to their credit, they got a lot of guys now who are really great in the ring, and they're kind of turning this stuff on its head. They got the New Day, who were like a shucking and jiving group, but they turned it into something to make everybody hate them. And they're almost mimicking all the old racist stereotypes. There's Titus O'Neil, the primetime players. They're just witty and great in the ring. And then there's Sasha Banks, who is like, taking women's wrestling. Her and Ric Flair are taking women's wrestling to another level. And I personally think Sasha Banks is like one of the 5 best wrestlers in the company. Now, there are a lot of wrestlers of color who are like taking things to the next level. And thanks to Hulk Hogan, one of them probably going to be world champion before the year's out.
You'll never be able to quit wrestling, will you?
Never. Probably not. My dad is 70. My dad's 75 years old, and he watched wrestling as a child, and he's still watching it. So
okay, so that's how this happened. It all makes sense.
Yeah, that's how it happened. Blame him. My son is 3, and he just about 10 minutes ago he just said Ric Flair chopping was chopping me on the chest. So we're starting him early.
David Dennis, check him out, thesmokingsection.com. You catch his work at Bossum.com. Also, check Playboy.com for his story of being a black wrestling fan. My man, I greatly appreciate the time. You take it easy.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Bomani.
Hall of Fame weekend for baseball. I feel like this was a bigger deal when I was a kid, as is the case with all things baseball. But, like, this is an incredible class. Like, I feel like this is a class that we should talk about a little bit more. Randy Johnson's going in, John Smoltz is going in, Pedro Martinez is going in, and Craig Biggio is going in. Now, earlier in the week, we talked about Pedro with Jonah Carey. I talked to Pedro Gomez about Randy Johnson. These other two guys, though, are interesting. Now, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Houston, so, like, the Biggio thing I was there for. I remember when Biggio came up. But I grew up as a Braves fan, and my absolute favorite player on the Braves probably always was John Smoltz, right? And the thing about John Smoltz was, if you started watching the Braves during the bad old days, you remember when they got John Smoltz. They got John Smoltz in that Doyle Alexander trade, right? So Doyle Alexander was something like 5-10 for the Braves in 1987. They trade him over to Detroit. He goes 8-1 or something absurd like that. It might even have been 8-0. Helps get Detroit into the playoffs. The Braves got John Smoltz. So when John Smoltz came up, he was the thing to look forward to because those teams were so bad. They were so awful. So even Smoltz's rookie year, I think he was like 2-7 or something like that. He wasn't great, but you could see it. Like it was there. And then the early 90s came, and the team started running away and getting really good. And where John Smoltz was the first one to emerge, it was Glavine that won that Cy Young Award. It was Steve Avery who wound up winning 18 games twice before John Smoltz did. Like, all those guys got better before he quite got there. He became famous for having to go see a sports psychologist because his focus supposedly wasn't there of anything else. And then 1996 comes around, and John Smoltz wins 24 games. Like, that was the year. He won 24 games, and he was just incredible. And then his arm goes bad, right? It's like Smoltz was doing all these different things to try to keep it together, changing his motion, going to a three-quarters motion, anything. The arm goes bad. And then Smoltz says, okay, well, we're going to try this bullpen thing. And then for 3 years, John Smoltz is, one of the best, if not the best closer in baseball. Grow the Fu Manchu and everything. Like, he absolutely played the part. And his thing was, I always wanted to go back to being a starter. And you see a guy that has arm problems, and he goes to the bullpen, and he's so good. You're like, man, you're not going to go back to start. This isn't going to work. And then he goes back to start, and he's good again at that. Like, this is a guy that we look at now as like a first ballot Hall of Fame type. But there were so many twists and turns in this to get John Smoltz to where it was. And he was quite possibly the best big game pitcher of his generation. Now, I think you don't think about this because John Smoltz played for the Braves, and the Braves only won one World Series out of all those times they went. Go look at those games he pitched in the 91 NLCS and the 91 World Series. Go through those postseasons. So you could make an argument that Glavine had a better career than John Smoltz. You could definitely make the argument that Greg Maddux had a better career than John Smoltz. But I bet if you watch people who had a vested interest in what happened to those Braves teams during that stretch, ask them one game on the line, the guy they want on the mound, it is John Smoltz. If for no other reason that, unlike the other guys, he threw hard. Like, if you're a Braves fan, you could appreciate Glavine, right? You could appreciate Maddux. You could appreciate the things they did because they were so good. But, man, they wasn't out there throwing hard. What was that year that Tom Glavine gave up all those runs in the All-Star game and kept giving up single after single after single? He said it felt like it was getting pecked to death by geese. He was just throwing it soft outside all the time. You never felt really good about that, right? Greg Maddux, as good as Greg Maddux was, and to be fair, he seemed to have a knack for losing 2-1 games. Like, Greg Maddux, if I'm not mistaken, was pitching against Livan Hernandez in 1997 when Livan Hernandez had the greatest umpire-assisted performance in the history of the postseason when Eric Gregg gave him all those strikeouts. Rest in peace. Anyway, yeah, but you didn't really feel it when it was Greg Maddux. But it was Smoltz. The smoke was coming. And you felt like something good was going to happen. Like, so John Smoltz, it makes me feel a little bit old that John Smoltz is going into the Hall of Fame. But John Smoltz going there is such a winner. Especially if you ever have to go on the disabled list because you burned yourself trying to iron your shirt while you were wearing it, I'm glad it all worked out so that you could make it to the Hall of Fame. Because if you disable yourself trying to iron a shirt while you're wearing it, which was the story on John Smoltz,
man,
a lot of things could go bad for you.
He's lucky we didn't have social media back then.
Woo-wee! A lot of those guys are lucky for that. A lot. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. Oh, man, I forgot. John Smoltz says that didn't really happen. Says it didn't really happen. He said he set the steamer down, and when I set it down, water popped out and caught me on the chest.
That sounds a lot better.
Still sounds like operator error. Like, it's still, I got news for you. If that ain't operator error, you need to sue the steamer company. I don't care if you're a baseball player or not. Like, if that happened to you with that steamer and you got a burn in your chest and it's not your fault, you need to call somebody. You call one of them lawyers from the commercials. They love stuff like that. You start a class action lawsuit. You find out everybody that got burned by that steamer. All right, 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. Sticking with the Hall of Fame but switching gears a little bit, I have a question for you. Why is Craig Biggio going into the Hall of Fame and Jeff Bagwell is still not there? Now, Craig Biggio is a Hall of Famer, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's much question about that. The success he had across positions. Like, once you can play catcher and be an all-star, and then go to another position and be an all-star, and then go to another position and be an all-star. Like, I don't think there's any question as to whether or not Craig Biggio is a Hall of Famer. That being said, we know why Jeff Bagwell is not in the Hall of Fame yet. We know it. It's the whispers. It's the speculation. That's it. Shannon, you got this. Absolutely great. It's the speculation. What I'm trying to figure out is how we decided that we were going to speculate about Jeff Bagwell and leave it at that. Here's why. This is why I asked that question, okay? Jeff Bagwell's last full season in the majors, where he, like, really played, was 2004, okay? He had 27 home runs. He had 89 RBIs at age 36. Do you know how many home runs Craig Biggio had that same year of 2004 when Jeff Bagwell had 27 home runs? 24. When Craig Biggio was 38. When he was 39, he had 26 home runs. That was more home runs than he had ever hit in his career, the 26 home runs he hit when he was 39 years old. All while, by the way, putting up the lowest on-base percentage that he had in a full season. Now, look, I'm not saying that to cast any aspersions at Craig Biggio, because I'm not. I really don't care. I'm just trying to figure out how you decided without proof that one of these guys was juicing and the other one was not. Like, help me out. Shannon, you're looking up Craig Biggio's stats right now, aren't you? And you are surprised by the numbers.
Yeah, just a little bit.
There are some high homer counts here for a guy who had for a guy who had full seasons in his career where he hit 4 home runs, 4 home runs, 6 home runs, 6 home runs. Okay? My point is this random idea that you're just going to figure out who's using steroids. How do you do that? And if you think that you're capable of doing that, just explain to me how it is that in 2004, an older Craig Biggio can hit 24 home runs, a younger Jeff Bagwell can hit 27, but you know which one of them is using. You don't know. That's why this whole game is a folly. You don't know.